All right, we're going to Daniel chapter 7. All right, we're going to start in verse 7. It reads like this. Let me see if my volume is right. It reads like this. Con. Okay, so Daniel chapter 7, verse 7. We're talking about tonight Jacob's trouble, but what we're really talking about is actually we're going to introduce you to the little horn that's part of the fourth beast. We introduced the fourth beast last week. Fourth beast last week. Um, with that fourth beast, there is a little horn that comes out of it. We're going to reveal that little horn tonight. But before we do that, we're going to show you how we got to that little horn. Because I introduced to you last week that there were 10 horns, but we didn't talk a whole lot about them. And we got to talk about, I showed you last week how about the Byzantine Empire. We're going to go back into that and show you the very vital role that the Byzantine Empire played and who these people actually were. Because believe it or not, they're your people. So we're going to prove that tonight. And with no further ado, we're going to get into Daniel chapter 7, verse 7. It reads like this. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. I mean, all of that sounds familiar. When we read all the beasts, who was it? Alexander the Great, talked about how his feet didn't even touch the ground because it was talking about how quickly he spread across the known world and defeated everyone. Who was it? The Persians and the Medes. It talked about how Alexander the Great stomped them out. So we this is all familiar wording, but now I want to show you something. Let's read that part again. It says, "And stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse." Now it's saying that the fourth beast is different, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. So now let's see what makes it diverse. The first thing that makes it diverse or different is it had 10 horns. Now, we told you before we went to Revelation, showed you that the horns are actually kings that were not yet in power. So we showed you that the fourth beast was Rome, but the 10 horns of Rome did not exist in the beginning. Okay, let's go to verse 8. I considered the horns. So he's trying to figure out what are these horns? And behold, there came up among them another little horn. So you had 10 kings, and then amongst them came one more king, before whom there were three of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. Okay? So we're going to reveal who that little horn is later on tonight. What we're not going to get now, the eyes of a man, that makes it different. We're not going to get into that tonight. That's next week. Speaking great things, we're not going to get into that tonight. That's next week, okay? But we are going to tell you who it is. So let's jump down to verse 24 is what I think I want. Right here. Daniel chapter 7, verse 24. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings. That's the same thing it says in the book of Revelation, except the book of Revelation was more specific, saying that these kings did not yet have power, which was very relevant because during the book of Revelation, when John the Revelator was getting his vision, the Roman Empire was actually in charge of the world, the known world. The Roman Empire was actually ruling Judea and had set up an Edomite king named King Herod the Great. Okay. But the 10 kings were not yet in existence. Okay. So let's read that again. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. See, they shall arise. And another shall rise after them. Another king is going to rise after them. And he shall be diverse or different from the first. And he shall subdue three kings. That's your hint to who this is right here, who that little horn is. That little horn is going to subdue three kings. And we're going to show you that in history next week, okay? All right, and it goes on to talk about he shall speak great words. We're not going to get into that tonight, okay? Um, Now, if you remember last week when I showed you the 10 horns, let's go back and present it again. I want to do something a little bit different. Let's stop sharing for just a second. Let's do a screen share. Can we do that tonight? Yes. All right, let's do this. All right, we got it now. I think we're going to be able to share the whole screen. Browser has blocked your screen. Wow. Click the screen icon in your address bar to allow access, then reload the page. Let's try this again. I hope we can get this to working. All right, we got it. We got it. We got it. Okay, here we go. Here we go. All right, so let's do this. Let me go to this Word document from last week. And I believe y'all can see this. Slide it over this way. Got our 10 horns here. We're going to go back through them real quick. We have the Anglo-Saxons, which is England, the Franks, which is France, Alemanni, Germans, Lombards, Italians, the Burgundians, Switzerland and France, Visigoths, Spain, Suabias, Portugal, the Vandals are North Africa, the Ostrogoths are Italy and the Balkans, and the Heruli is Southern Europe. Now, I want you to notice something. You don't see Greece in here. And I'm going to show you why in just a minute, okay? Now, let's get rid of this real quick because we basically showed you all of Europe and showed you Africa there. So why is Greece not listed? We're going to get into all of that. Let's go to Revelation 20. And we're going to start in verse 1 again. I showed you this last week, but I want you to get the background because this is going to be the background for our story tonight. All right. And you know what? As a matter of fact, we're not even going to do it from here. What we're going to do, I did put a thing out there for you guys. So let's see. Here it goes right here. All right, we're going to pull Revelation 20 up just like we did last week. It's going to be Exhibit A. Watch this. All right. So this is Revelation 20. And it says right here. Now you notice I have it highlighted in orange and blue. And you remember last week I told you that these are two different time periods. All of the orange has to deal with the Roman Empire and then the Byzantines locking them up, okay? Now when you get into the blue, that has to do with Christ returning and us reigning with him for 1,000 years. That's a different 1,000-year period, okay? So you can't read this book from cover to cover. I'm talking about the book of Revelation and think that it's in order. It's not. It tells stuff. It goes someplace else. It goes back to what it was telling. And you have to be able to break this down. But it gives you hints because if you actually read it, it tells you the role of the seven angels. So if you follow that, you'll know when this breaks down. Plus, I showed you that you had your paragraph separators, okay? So let's read verse 1. It says, and I saw an angel come down from heaven. And if we had read back, this is actually the fifth angel, okay? And the way I know that is because it said that the fifth angel had the key to the bottomless pit. So let's read that again. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. Do not let that bottomless pit fool you. That is not hell. Bottomless just means that it's unsubstantial. It's worthless. There's no value to it. There's nothing there. So basically, he's talking about a worthless piece of land. Okay. Now we're going to identify that land for you tonight. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent. And I showed you last week that the dragon is Rome. which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season. Okay, so now we have the Roman Empire being defeated and put into a place, and we're going to show you that. Okay, so let's go now to where do I want to go from here? Let's go to the Encyclopedia Britannica. Is that where I want to go first? We may make a pit stop before we get there. Before we go to the Encyclopedia Britannica, let's go to Etymology Online. Now, remember, Etymology Online, I told you, gives you the definition of a word as it was first used. Etymology, it just means the study of words. So right here it says bottomless. In the early 14th century, so that would be in the 1500s, it could be without a bottom. That would be bottomless. It says from bottomless from the 1560s as baseless or unsubstantial. That's what I told you. That's what we're looking at. This pit or this land that they were put in was unsubstantial. And the reason that it's a pit is because it just has nothing there. You couldn't grow anything because where they're actually at is the Caucasus Mountains of Georgia. So you're talking about a mountainous region, and with mountains you have valleys, and that's where you put. When people live in mountainous regions, they don't live at the top of the Alps. They live at the bottom. And I showed you last week that when Esau was in Mount Seir, which is modern day Petra, he actually cut out architecture in the size of those mountains, but it wasn't at the top. It's at ground level. Okay, so let's go from there back to, I had told you where we're going. I told you we're going to look at the Britannica Encyclopedia. So let's do that. We can get it from right here. There we go. All right, so we're going to look at Exhibit B. Now, this is the Byzantine Empire. These are the people that I told you they actually defeated the Roman Empire, but I'm going to show you what they say about this. The first Byzantine king is a man by the name of Constantine the Great. He is the first Constantine because there are many Constantines that descend from him. Now, you need to know about this man. This is your people. Okay? And this is what they've hid from you in school, but they had all this information. So watch this. Where I have it highlighted, it says Byzantine Empire. It says the Byzantine or East Roman Empire was in essence the Roman Empire in its medieval form. Now, let me define some words for you. Number one, they say in essence. So why didn't they just say that this is the Roman Empire? Because it really wasn't. See, the Roman Empire, wherever they went, they would take young men and they would bring these young men up to be in their military. And so they had a lot of Jews. They were the most diverse military that existed. I mean, probably more diverse than what we have here in America. So, in essence, it's the Roman Empire, but it's really not. They're not the people of Rome. You see what I'm saying? Now, watch this. Then I'm going to show you another hint they give you. They say in its medieval form. Well, you have to understand what they mean by medieval. I'm going to show you that, and then we're going to come back to this, okay? This is where they give it away. So let's click on right here, medieval definition. I went on and pulled it up for you. See right there, we have medieval at the top. This is Webster's, Merriam-Webster's dictionary. So the reason I brought this one up is it breaks the word down. It said, with its root medi, M-E-D-I, meaning middle, and EV meaning age. So now we're saying that this word medieval means middle age. You've probably heard that before. So it goes on to say medieval literally means of the Middle Ages. In this case, middle means between the Roman Empire and the Renaissance. So if the Byzantines are in control, then how could it be that the Roman Empire has ended The period is when the Roman Empire ended, and then it's when the Roman Empire is reborn. That's what Renaissance means, is rebirth. Okay? So that's why they say in essence, because they don't wholly consider these to be Romans. Okay? Watch this. That is the fall of the great Roman state and before the rebirth of culture that we call the Renaissance. That's what they call the Renaissance. Now watch what else they say. The same period used to be called the Dark Ages. Why they call it Dark Ages? Because black people ruled. See, we ruled Europe for 1,000 years, actually 1,100 years. I'm going to show you that. But that was the eastern part of Europe. During the same period for the last 700 years of that 1100, we also ruled the western part of Europe. And while that was going on, the 10 tribes of Northern Kingdom were over in the Americas, ruling it. So we ruled the whole earth for approximately 1,000 years. This is after King David and King Solomon and our great ancestors had ruled. See, we locked Esau up. Constantine defeated the Roman army, and they had to go into the Caucasus Mountains. Let's keep reading. Since it was believed in these years, civilization all but vanished. Civilization for them vanished. They didn't think they were ever going to come back. The world was surprised. Okay, so let's go back to where we're at then. We got that information. So let's go back now. I think we were looking at Exhibit B. Let's get back to it. Give me just a second to pull it up. Here we go. All right, let's get back to Exhibit B. We have some more reading to do on that. Let's get a full screen on it. All right, so now, right here was in essence the Roman Empire in its medieval form, and its early beginnings can already be discerned in the reign of Constantine the Great. Now, that's one of our forefathers, okay? He profoundly influenced the course of European and imperial history. Well, if he was that relevant, why didn't they teach us about him? There was no break in continuity for the Roman imperial tradition and Hellenistic civilization. You got to get this word. You got to understand this. This goes all the way back to understanding the Bible. See, you have to know who Esau is. You have to know who the Jews are. You have to know who the Israelites are. And you have to know who Hellenes are to understand this Bible, okay? So we're going to show you that real quick. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to Scripture and give you a verse. We're going to go to where Christians love to go. Galatians 3:28. We're going to tackle that one, okay? So let's go in there. We're going to read something to you. All right, so let's read. The book of Galatians, chapter 3 and verse 28. There's neither Jew nor Greek. There's neither bond nor free. There's neither male nor female, for ye are all one in Christ Jesus. Well, we say that the Bible is written to the Israelites and for the Israelites. So how can there be neither Jew nor Greek? Well, let's look at this word Greek. Let's go to the tools. Let's scroll down. Where do we see Greek at? Right here, Greek. I passed by it. And it's G1672. But look at the word right here. It says Helen. So Greek is translated in this particular verse from the word Helen, which is very important. Now we're going to show you something. Let's go back in here. And where did I put that? What exhibit is that? I think we're still going to be in, let's go to exhibit C. All right, so I want to show you something about Helen. So right here, this is the Encyclopedia Britannica. And we are in volume number, I want to say that this is volume 5. And this is page 333. And I want to start at the bottom of the page on the left-hand side. Now, I have Let me expand this some. All right. So down here at the bottom is where it says many Jews took Greek. And for some reason, it will not let me expand this more. Let me do something real quick. I think we have it now. Okay. It says many Jews took Greek, and I cannot read it there. It's asking me to stop sharing, but we don't want to do that. Let me try something. Let me close it out and come back in. All right, we're good now. I think we can handle it from here. All right, it says many Jews took Greek names and imitated Greek, can't read it, Greek ways. Okay. So it's talking about Jews taking Greek names and imitating Greek ways. Okay. Now I went over here and I underlined some stuff. You can expand it, you can look at it and see what all is going on here. But basically, if you get down here, it tells you that what makes someone a Hellen is that they left their religion and they went over to Greek customs. Okay. And it's talking about Jews that did it. Okay. So if you read from this part where it's highlighted all the way through here, it says many Jews took Greek names and imitated Greek ways. Okay. Wish I could expand that. I can't expand that so I can read it. Okay. Wanted to read that for y'all. Why is it giving me this? All right. So then we go over to Hellenist out of the Zondervan. Okay. And it goes on and says it's non-Greeks who speak Greek. Matter of fact, let me get my Zondervan out. I'll put it back up. Here it goes, right here. Let me read it straight from the Zondervan. All right, all right, all right. It says non-Greeks who spoke Greek, a term used especially of Jews who made Greek their tongue, and with it often adopted Greek ideas and practices. So I took you to Galatians 3:28 just to show you that what it's actually talking about is not a natural Greek when it says Jews and Greeks. What it's showing you is a Jew who has taken on the ways and custom of a Greek. Okay. So if you look in there, it also gives you Acts 6 and 1 and Acts 9 and 29, where the same words are used. And in that case, those are Grecians. Okay. So it has Grecians translated from the word Hellenist. All right. Now let's go again. I'm going to show you one more verse if I can get there real quick. Not one more verse, but one more instance of what this Helen is. It's back like this. Okay, now you see the word Gentiles, okay? Now watch this. Let's go down where it's highlighted. Right there it says Helen. You see my cursor? Greeks is translated Gentiles. So Helens is translated also as Gentiles in the New Testament, okay? And it says in KJV, let's look at the verses. John 7 and 35, you can write these down. Romans chapter 2, verses 9 and 10. Romans 3, verse 9. 1 Corinthians 10 and 32. And 1 Corinthians 12 and 13. You will see the word Gentiles, and it's actually talking about Jews who've taken on Greek customs. Okay? That's all it's saying. So when there's neither Jew nor Greek, it's talking about you have the Jews who are in Judea who know and are keeping the customs of the Jews, and then you have the Jews who have been raised in other lands who are calling themselves Greeks. Okay? No different than how we have to go out and teach people now and tell them that they are Israelites because they think they're American. Okay? They think they're African American. They think they're Negroes. So just trying to help y'all on that. Okay? So let's do this. That was, let's go back to Exhibit B. I want to show y'all something on that. All right, so we're back to the Byzantines. Now, if I can just see this, I may have to go. Now it's working. It wouldn't do that earlier. All right, now we in business. All right, so let's go up here to the top. You see where my cursor is. It says, up to the middle of the 11th century, the Byzantine Empire was in actual strength and prestige, the first power in Europe. You never heard that before. See, they try to act like they didn't know that we ruled Europe. They got the information. They know. And they talk to you, talk down to you and tell you you're nobody and never share this information for you. We taught them. We brought them out of the mountains. Let's keep reading. It says throughout the medieval period or the Dark Ages, and it goes on. Let's see right there, 1204. The page is curved, so I can't read it. Let's see if we can make it out. Throughout the medieval period, okay, throughout the medieval period, something was captured by the Latins in 1204. Constantinople was, in fact, the foremost city in the Christian world. Constantinople is named after Constantine that I showed you. Constantinople is a city in Turkey. Today it's known as Istanbul, okay? But what I really want to get you to see is once we get past that, you get down here and I have its Greek heritage. Watch the sentence that it comes from. It says, as the era of antiquity, it was undoubtedly, talking about Constantinople, superior in civilizations and was largely responsible for introducing the rest of Europe to its Greek heritage. Now, these young men had been raised as Greco-Romans. They had been raised as Greeks. See, they had come from the Grecian Empire. They were Jews. And so once they took over the Roman Empire, they actually pushed Greek culture because they didn't know their own culture. Okay? Very important for you to get this. I'm about to show you something else. Let's see if we can click over. It's not going to let me cut it down. Let's go back. All right, there we go. That's what we want. Is that where we want to go? Let's see where we want to go now. So we told you it's the Dark Ages. Let's go to Exhibit F. Let's close this down. Let's go to Exhibit F. See what D was. Let me check out D real quick. Make sure we hit that. Okay, that was all about the Hellenistic period. Okay, close that down. And we say we're going to go to Exhibit F. Yeah, that's where we want to go. I want to show you something. Okay, so in this one right here, watch this. Over here to the right, you have, it says Byzantine rulers. That's what I underlined up here. Now, what I want you to get out of this, watch how deceitful they are. This time period, this starts in the 300s, okay? I think that's it. That says 317. That's 317. Here goes 324 AD. That's when Constantine the first started ruling. But if you get down here, you would think that this ended long, long ago. This takes us to 1455. Now, just think about it. Christopher Columbus came over here in 1492. And if you study the history of it, King Ferdinand did not get control of Spain until 1492. Before then, it was the Moors ruling. So we were still ruling at the point where they were making plans to come over here to get to our people. I just wanted to point that out. So this is not history so far back that they don't remember. that they don't know and they don't have the documentation on. Okay, let's go to now to volume G. Yeah, exhibit G. Now, this is what I want you to get out of here. Now, this is Roman religion. Now, watch what it says here. I want you to get right here where it's highlighted. The religion of the religion of ancient Rome, from the earliest known times to the final suppression of paganism. Let's blow that up. May be conveniently divided into four periods. Now let's look at the four periods. The first one is the natives. That would be the children of Japheth. Remember, Noah had three sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. The natives would be the Japhites, okay? Number two is the Italians, including the Etruscans. Now, the Etruscans were black people as well, right? So you don't ever hear about them. And you have people going around saying that it was the Etruscans who are the Edomites. No, 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 no. Etruscans were not in control at the point where Rome was ruling over Judea. That's not true. Now, this is the time period that we are concerned about. Number three, it says Greek passing into Greco-Roman. Well, what does that mean? Well, we as black people understand what passing means. When we went through slavery here in the US, if you were born with one white parent, and let's say you came out looking white, you could pass for white and move around in white society. And we call that passing. And that's what happened here. See, you have to understand something about Esau. Esau does not always come in and just take over a land violently, even though his blessing is a sword. Got a lot of people out here tonight. Hey, Shalom family. Good seeing all y'all. What Esau normally does is he gives his daughters to your leaders as wives. And that's what happened to Constantine the Great. He actually took on a Edomite wife. If you get down to Constantine the Fifth, he actually took on a Khazar. Now, I want you to remember that name because we're going to get into the Khazars. It's not going to be tonight. It's probably about 2 more weeks before we get into the Khazars, but they are very important. He took on a Khazar as his wife. Now, this is what happens. When you take on wives of foreign nations, and you know that this book is only for you, and you know that these people are going into captivity, are you able to tell your mother that? If your mother is an Edomite, and you able to tell her all Edomites are going to be destroyed? I'm going to show you how we compromise and how this book got turned into something that people accept as all inclusive and everyone can be saved. See, it had a lot to do with what happened in the Byzantine Empire. See, Byzantium, which later on became known as Constantinople, we separated ourselves, but then our leaders took on foreign wives. And in doing that, Esau always had a plan to come back and rule. Had we not done that, we would have maintained our rule. Let's keep reading. So we got Greek passing into Greco-Roman. Now the fourth one is Oriental, which really doesn't matter, okay? That's not what we're concerned about. All right, so let's go over here. Do I want to hit that? Let's go. Yeah, that's paragraph 4. Let's read this. Now I want to show you now, we're talking about Greeks passing into Greco-Roman. It didn't say Greeks passing into Rome because it became known as Greco-Roman because that's how they were intermeshed. All right. So let's look at this. It says in the green, underlined in green, it says, but the calendars nevertheless record the God's name in large letters. Well, what gods are they talking about? Chief among them comes Jupiter, in Latin, Iupiter, whose name is etymologically equivalent to the Greek Zeus. See, Zeus was the head god of the Greeks. As the Greeks came in and passed as Romans, they brought all their gods with them too. If you look up the Roman gods, they're the same gods with a different name that the Greeks had. Before then, what the Romans had was just cults. And what we mean by cults is their gods was a family member. Your great great grandfather, this is where they get worshiping ancestors from. Your great great grandfather would be a god. When the Greeks came in, they introduced their gods. Okay. Let's go now to, I want to show you that about the calendar and that we actually call on their gods by the calendar, even down to the days of the week. Okay. Let's go to Exhibit H. Now we're still under Roman religion. Watch this. Now, this actually gives the order. We had already shown 1, 2, 3, and 4, the different periods. You can see the Italians and the Etruscans right here. And you can see some information on the calendar. The Etruscans actually introduced a 12-month calendar, but it says the calendar lost touch more and more with the seasons until Julius Caesar's reform. And if you read up further, it talks about how the feast days were forgotten and stuff like that. But I want you to see right here, Janus. See right here, it says January. January comes from the goddess named Janus. You have Aprilis, okay? And so all of these, Mars is March. All of these are Greek gods, okay? Now let's see if we can get it to roll down to the bottom. We're gonna have to skip that part. It's not letting me do it. All right, so let's see. If we go to the top right column, it says Greece itself and with the empires of Alexander's successors became more frequent. So what it's talking about, it says at the bottom, as Rome expanded its relations, and it gets cut off down here, but it says his relations with the Greek communities of southern Italy and later with Greece itself. You see what happens? So now Rome is merging with Greece, but it's through religion. And the religion is a pagan religion that has to do with their 12 major gods. Okay. I want you to take note of that. This is how they're bonding. Okay. And at the same time, we had a lot to do with it as the Byzantines. So let's keep reading. Let's go now to which one was this? This was Greek past and calendar. Let's go to H, okay? Let's go to Exhibit H. And we had two more exhibits after this, but this one I really want you to get. So now we showed you the 10 horns, and they were all European nations, right? And it told you that the Byzantines were the ones who really pushed the Greek culture to all of Europe, right? Well, let's see who populates Europe. I told you the Byzantines locked a certain people up in the Caucasus Mountains, and those people came to be known as Caucasians. Now, look, we're under Caucasoid. We're still in the Encyclopedia Britannica, okay? And this is volume 5, and this is page 96, the first paragraph, okay? See if we show this. See, that's page 96, Caucasoid and Caucasus, okay? Watch this. Look at what I underline. It says called The Caucasian Race by J.F. Blumenbach. This is a German. Look at the name. It sounds Jewish, right? In honor of the women of the Caucasus whom he admired and often termed the white race. Now, if you remember, we looked at the Greeks and we looked up the Argead dynasty. It turned out that what it meant was white prosperity, right? Look how this keeps coming up. Okay, so he says that he termed them the white race. It says a more appropriate designation is the European geographical race. Where are they from? Where did they end up populating? All of Europe. In this way, the original geographical center is defined, and the inclusion of purely local races is more clearly understood. So the European nations that we acknowledge today is the white race. Where did they come from? Where were they recently from? The Caucasus. Where did we define that the Greeks came from? They came from Mount Seir. And what was their name? The Edomites. And who are the Edomites? The children of Esau. It's very simple. Very simple. They can't hide their identity anymore. Let's do this. Let's go to, and that's exhibit I. I think I said H, but that's I. Let's go to exhibit J. Let's look at the Catholic Church, okay? All right, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. I want y'all to get this now. Now it's gonna act up on me again. See, can we read it? All right, so this is basically what it says. It gives a definition for the word Catholic. Now you got to remember, this book was written for this book in the Bible was written for the Israelites and by Israelites. So we had history when Moses came aboard. The Lord told him how the world began, right? So this was before Moses' time. This was history. And to us, when we read back into the Old Testament, that's all history. The entire book is history. But then there's also prophecy. But then there's also eyewitness accounts of things that were happening as they happened. Okay, checking the time real quick, 7:42. But we're going to get where we want to get to. We're not going to cut it off early. We're making good time. So let's look at it. Catholic derived from a Greek word meaning universal. Do you see that? This is when they started switching to the Bible. And what they did is start with a second time. When they were in Greece, they turned to the Bible. And the Bible records that they started painting the likeness of their images in our book. So now they get in control again. And it's through Catholicism that they're trying to make this book be for everyone. And see, all of the churches are children of the Catholic Church. See, you're either Catholic or you are Protestant. Protestant means you come out of protest. See, there was a man named Martin Luther, and he was an Edomite, and some of the things that the Catholic Church was doing, he didn't like. So he protested and he started churches outside of the Catholic Church. So all churches are considered Catholic or Protestant, but they all have the same beliefs. They believe, number one, that everyone can be saved. They believe that most of them believe in a triune God. Some of them have come out of that now. Okay. But the main thing they believe is that everyone can be saved. They don't believe this book is for the Jews. Okay. But that's why I went in tonight showing you what the word Gentile really means and where it comes from, where the word, what was the other one? Gentile, Greek. So you have to read the context and see who they're talking about when you see these words. Okay. Let's read that further down here. Uh, Down here where we have it underlined, the second underline, it talks about a worldwide extension. The same thing they said up there. So before the Catholic Church came in, everyone understood that this book was for the Jews. That's why at first the Roman religions had to do with Greek gods. Now they come in, they say, you know what? This is our book too. And this is our God. But then I showed you last week where they took and painted an image of a fake Christ, a white man, and they started bowing down to him and gave him the incommunicable name. And the Bible says that they painted him diverse color, which means they changed the color of him from being a black man to a white man, right? So that was Wisdom of Solomon 15:4. For those of y'all who didn't get that last week. Um, So we have Catholic actually means universal, which means everyone. And then we have the worldwide extension, which is basically the same thing. They basically executed this based off of their name, okay? Based off of the Catholic Church. All right, so it is now 7:45. I think what we're going to do is reveal to you who the little horn is. I don't know if we're going to get into that tonight. I wasn't planning on it other than revealing to you and then explaining next week. So I think that's the road we're going to keep going. But let me look up something real quick. Let me do something real quick before we do that. If I can get out of this. It's going to let me get out. How do I get out of this? Okay, there we go. There we go. All right. Show y'all why we're doing this lesson, other than it was on my heart. So I read to you in Mark where the where Jacob's trouble starts and where it ends, right? But there's a little bit more to it. Let me see if I can find this verse. But the heaven and earth, judgment, perdition, go into perdition. No. All right, let's go to John 17 and 12. So I told you that Jacob's trouble would continue until Christ comes back, right? Now watch this. It says, while I was with them in the world, I kept them in thy name. This is Christ talking and saying that he kept us in the name. Okay. Those that thou gavest me, I have kept, and none of them is lost, but the son of perdition, that the scripture might be fulfilled. See, Judas was a son of perdition, right? But he's not the only son of perdition, because the scripture tells us that the son of perdition has to be revealed before the end comes. And that's what we're doing now. See, we told you that Alexander the Great, that his nickname, the rough goat, meant devil. And then we showed you that his successors, they operated in dark sayings and craft. They went to witchcraft. That's how they ruled. Now we're showing you that our problem has been lust. And where we knew that we should not have dealt with women of other nations, we did. And I'm going to kind of give our brothers some leadway, who were the Byzantines, because I don't know exactly what they knew, because these brothers had been raised as Greeks. See, that's why even though they ruled the world, they never went back into Judea. See, the Bible said that we wouldn't go back, and they didn't. You see what I'm saying? They loved that Greek culture. Let's do this real quick. Let's go back to Daniel chapter 7. I'm going to explain some things to you, and then we're going to prove it next week, okay? Probably going to get into this further than I wanted to this week. I'm going to give it away. Let's go to Daniel 7 and 8. It says, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. You got that? We already told you that the horns are kings, right? Before whom there were three of the first horns plucked up by the roots. So before this one king plucked up three other kings. He defeated them. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. So let me remind you about history. Now, what we have to keep in mind is all of the 10 horns come out of Europe. And this other little horn has to come out of Europe. I considered the horns, behold, there came up among them another little horn. Came up among them. So what happened in recent history? Out of Europe came some people to a place called the New World, right? And these people were white people. They were Europeans. See, this is the little horn. It's called America. And see, who are the three kings that got pulled up? Let's review history real quick. From 1754 to 1763, there was a war between Britain and France, but it was called the French and Indian War. You have to remember who was vying for this land. The French were over here, the Spanish were over here, and the English were over here. So I'm going to give you some history and remind you how all this happens. So we have what's called the French and Indian War. So basically, they got us to fight against ourselves. Some of us were with the French, and some of us were with the British. Okay. And that went on for 9 years. And the winner of that war turned out to be Britain. And so France ended up giving up its land holdings to Britain, all of the land holdings on the east side of the United States. Okay. Then what happens after that? So I told you that's 1754 to 1763. Then in April of 1775, the Revolutionary War started. And that's between what later became known as the US and Britain. US wins that in 1776, okay? So now you have the French being defeated and you have the Brits being defeated. These are two nations that make up the 10 horns. Then in 1898, there's the Spanish American War. Um, and so America actually acquires sovereignty from Spain by defeating them and getting Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. So and also we got a protectorate over Cuba, which we did not take Cuba, but Spain could not be part of Cuba anymore. So, and I shouldn't say we. So we did the U.S. defeated France, it defeated Britain, and it defeated Spain. These were world powers. And once Spain was defeated, U.S. was known as the world power. You see what I'm saying? So the little horn is America. And America came up out of the tin horns because it came from those nations. It came from Europe. It came from that continent. That's where the pilgrims come from. That's where Christopher Columbus comes from. That's where the conquistadors come from. That's where whatever the name Lewis and Clark come from. All of them come from Europe. Okay, and so there were three horns that got plucked up by America. All right. So we gave you that history. And so just because we had a little bit more time left than I had expected, I hope this was edifying. We didn't get a whole lot of scripture in tonight. What I wanted to do was get you some history tonight because these Christians, these European Christians, they know exactly what a Jew and a Gentile is. Don't even bother arguing with them. Show them that you know what you're talking about and move it on. We are out on those streets to save our people. Give this information to our people. Okay. Hey, Shalom Israel. Love y'all. And we will be back next week with some more edifying information. Uh, y'all have a good night and a good weekend. Go enjoy your families. Shalom. Get back to StreamYard and close this out.